Okay. So I have here joining me Alejandro and GammaFox, two of the developers, and hopefully the third Arkanpixel will also be joining us as well. So can you introduce yourselves and talk about your role on the project? I guess starting with Alejandro, we'll just stick with alphabetical for now. And
Okay.
yeah, we can talk a little bit about your role on this project.
Okay, sure. Well, I'm Alejandro. I'm a musician and sound designer from Mexico, and obviously my role in this game was primarily the audio side. There isn't really much music in this game, but there was a lot of important placed upon the sound design. So yeah, that was my role for this project.
Yeah, so we are hearing that now. Again, it's going to be a little quiet relative to the guests' voices. I'm trying to keep that in focus. So I'm going to have, the good thing is to me, I'm going to have a different audio balance. So I'm going to try and see if we can split my attention between the keeping the conversation going and also not dying in the game. But once again, I'll repaste the link in chat because obviously this is going to be one you want to experience for yourselves, given that there is such an emphasis on actually listening to the environment in the game.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, so GammaFox, if you could talk a little bit about in introduction and your role on the project.
Yeah, so I'm Gamma. I was the programmer and kind of helped design most just the back end on the project. So yeah, I went through and kind of was putting everybody's assets together and programming all of this, and had a fun time of crunching for that last day. So.
So are you working like right down to the wire?
Yeah, I was naive and thought that I was going to be able to get away with actually going to bed at like a reasonable time that night, and the submission was about like 4 a.m. myself, and when I was kind of working on it the night before, I realized that we still have a good chunk of stuff to do, so we started kind of working on that, and by about like midnight I realized I'm not actually going to be sleeping tonight, so we were working all throughout the night, and we ended up submitting I think 3 minutes before submission.
Oh jeez, I get whoa. Uh-oh, I think we just passed into an asteroid. That is rough though. I've been pretty lucky. I think mostly because of the fact that I end up working on a lot of jam projects solo. It's pretty easy for me to budget my own time and knowing like, oh, okay, we're gonna cut that, but yeah, it's well, good on you for like sticking through it, I guess, and making sure that you finished it just in time. And hello, Arkanpixel. Perfect, you've just joined us in excellent time. We were just going through introductions and roles on the project. So,
I guess I'll introduce myself then. Well, I'm Arkanpixel, and I was the sole animator artist for this game. Sorry, I was late. I had some issues with my internet.
no trouble. No, you made perfect time, so don't worry about it. Yeah, we're just trying to do our best. I guess the hull is kind of like not going to be like I'm just sort of losing hull over time, or does that end up repairing itself if I can keep the system in ship shape?
That's kind of your one expendable resource that you really don't want to be losing.
Right.
So we kind of had certain layers of priority of what you're going to want to be trying to keep up and what you can afford to, let break down a little bit.
Have you heard of the game Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time?
Yeah, that was definitely something I was thinking about a lot with how in the beginning I think it started with Arkin suggesting an idea of like,
I think it was pets getting loose in a pet shop or something,
Yeah.
and you have to put them back in there like a dog escapes, and you have to put it back in its cage before the customers see it, and something silly like that.
Yeah,
And
then
then
just
we're like, oh, what if we just do it on a spaceship? Oh, you're right. It's way more cool.
So what's actually like a good score in this game?
It's hard
Well,
to say.
actually, yeah.
I don't think I've actually
the
like
best?
paid that
What's
much attention.
What's the best everyone's gotten? I think the highest I got was like, I got to like 30, and then that's pretty much where I got.
Yeah, something similar.
Yeah, I think maybe 40 to 50 was mine.
Damn.
Yeah, I don't think I paid that much attention to my final score. I really wish we had just a little bit more time because I really wanted to put like a leaderboard system to this, but just
Yeah,
couldn't
the
get the
scoreboard
time.
would have been nice, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so maybe we can sort of jump right to that. What are some of the other features that you had planned for the game that you didn't necessarily have time to implement?
Well, I know the one, like I said in the itch description, was that we weren't really able to find that little bit of time to be able to make a tutorial.
Yeah.
And people, were rightfully a little frustrated sometimes with trying to be able to make sense of this giant mess going on all around you. But that was kind of the one main one that I really wish we would have been able to put in, but jam, that's just kind of how it happens.
There was also a few art assets that were made but literally didn't have time to be thrown into the Unity file. So we've got a few like I made an asteroid belt for the background and like a few I think sparks animations and stuff like that. But and also the lights on the roof would have had like a cone of light that they emitted, and then when your power goes down, the lights actually dim, so you can kind of tell which things have gone down a bit more.
Right.
But yeah, that just no time.
So were you planning on using Unity's like actual 2D lighting system, or just like sprite-based lights?
I'm not sure what Gamma had in mind, but yeah, I literally just drew like a sprite that was a light beam. And was like, yeah, we can add light to this if we have time, but I was really just planning on having the sprites in, to be honest.
Yeah, I haven't like messed around a whole lot with the lighting system, and for something like this, I think it would have just been easier to use the sprite, use like lower opacity, and just go with that, because I think that would have just been the simplest solution. So that's, yeah, probably what we would have gone with if we were able to put it in. But
That sounds good. Well, I think it seems like I'm not doing too terribly if I've made it to 27 years. To answer your question, Escalator, I'm not getting any local frame drops, although this interview I'm also recording locally, so don't want to take any chances on the audio balance for today. Right, so other than that, I guess, was there anything else to the inspiration of the game, aside from, like I mentioned Lovers in a Dangerous Spacetime, but have you played that before, heard of it, seen it?
Gamma's played it before. In terms of the art, my main influence were Starbound and FTL.
yeah, I played sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, Starbound is, because it's also got like a pixelated sci-fi aesthetic.
Yeah, I think that's the only game that I've seen that has like 2D side-on spaceships, essentially.
Yeah, because like FTL
Like,
is top-down, right?
Yes, yeah, it is. So like I mainly like FTL, I guess, was what we took most of the, like FTL and Lovers in Spacetime were the main influences for the game itself. But the character itself, I kind of just made in like 5 minutes. I made the sprite, and I was like, "Hey, you guys cool with this?" Like, "Yeah, cool." And then I'm like, "Cool, we're doing this guy." But in terms of like the hull elements, I looked at games like Starbound for inspiration.
Yeah, so the actually just gonna relaunch the game there because there's actual like music on the title screen, right? Or is it just the ambient sound?
It's sort of an ambience made with sort of sci-fi synths. So I don't know if I would classify it specifically as music, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a sort of like eerie soundscape, I guess, of
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, just the sort of apprehension and
Yeah, because I know we were initially considering music, but I think once we started getting closer to the end, we kind of realized, like, with all of the sounds going on and everything, I think music kind of wouldn't have been able to be fully appreciated when it's being interrupted by giant blaring alarms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I did do a few little tests, but I realized that since the audio cues are what's telling you what to look at and what's going to break down, then the music was just distracting you from that. So I decided to go with more of an ambience direction so that it wouldn't take away from that.
yeah, no, I think that's it's a good focus, especially in the case of a jam. Like, I think it would have been neat if you could have played with. I want to see what happened if I let the start screen scroll around.
Oh yes, he found the Easter egg.
I'm so happy. I haven't gotten a single comment about this.
I know, not even like.
I forgot we had that in.
So yeah, I was just gonna say what was I gonna say? Yeah, nope, it's gone. Okay, we'll cycle back to that. So the actual development process of the game, Gemma, if you can talk a little bit about how that was all built up.
Yeah, so it kind of went through a few general iterations. Like initially, I think we were planning on doing like 3 levels to the spaceship rather than the 2 we ended up with. And it was going to be a lot more like focus on the elevator and doing stuff like that. But after we did some more playtesting, we kind of realized that, you know, if it's breaking down and stuff, that can just be a little too much for being interrupting the gameplay and just making it more of a nuisance than anything. So we ended up going with like a wider design, giving the elevator is, you know, a faster way to get across, but something that can still break down, and then the ladder, which is, you know, not going to break, but will still be a little bit slower. So you'd kind of want to strategically use the elevator when you can. Yeah, and then
we were also going to make the alien a sort of an obstacle that would be completely impassable at certain times. So if the alien was there, you had to be like, no, and go another route. But then in the final design, we had 1 ladder and 1 elevator, and the alien was in the middle. So if you couldn't, if the alien was there and you couldn't go past it to go on the ladder, and the elevator was on the bottom floor, you just lose because of RNG, essentially.
Right. Yeah, so I guess the other sort of direction I can imagine this game going, just to sort of dip into a little bit of feedback, is I can imagine a more mobile character, and the game being treated a bit more like the character having the ability to like move a little quicker and jump around, and sort of having multiple paths towards each potential like station they need to repair, and then having certain paths like doors getting locked, or as you mentioned, like the alien blocking things off. And then it's not that it's RNG making you lose, it's just the fact that you have to like if something is coming up, you just have to take a different route, and then like sort of keep the player on their toes and improvising as the various systems break down, and you have to sort of change your route as time goes on.
Yeah,
I think
that's essentially what we're thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the doors in particular, I think, was something we were considering, doing something like that for similar reasons, but I think in the end we mostly wanted to focus on kind of making a pretty immersive experience where, as you kind of seen, hopefully maybe heard a little bit of, you have the visuals and audio cues giving you some guidance on where to go and whatnot, but yeah, I definitely would have liked if we had maybe just a couple more days to be able to do a little bit of extra stuff, because once you get into the loop of things, it's definitely going to become pretty easy, and it's just kind of a delay the inevitable kind of thing, but it's also a jam game, so it's not necessarily something that needs to be a half-hour journey to change your life or anything. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I think
Actually,
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I just remembered we were also planning on doing some sort of quick time events for repairing everything. So that it wasn't just a timer, but it was like a quick time event that if you did it correctly, then you repaired it quickly, and if you didn't, you got electrocuted, so you lost a little bit of health and a little bit of time. But I think that got scrapped because we didn't have time to do that.
Like, the idea was still solid by the end, but we didn't have time to do the art, the sounds, and the programming for QuickTime events,
Yeah,
essentially.
I'm a big fan of the active reload in Gears of War. The idea that you can sort of alternately hold the button down to repair something, but then maybe do a button input to press it at the ideal time and get it done a little quicker.
Yeah, that was pretty much what we had in mind. But instead of the gun jamming, as it does if you fail, you were gonna get electrocuted or something.
Yeah, exactly. So A, it's not repaired, and B, you lose health. So I don't know. Or do you have any thoughts of coming back to this project and adding in some of those ideas?
We had plans to come back to it somewhat. We probably weren't gonna completely rework it from the ground up or anything, but we were gonna, especially the assets we already had made, sort of thing, the asteroids for the background I was talking about before. But I think didn't you already go in and fix the main menu, Gamma?
yeah, I did fix the main menu and got a couple minor things fixed. I did notice now that I'm watching play a little bit, there's just two small bugs that are still remaining, but overall I think it still came out pretty clean. But yeah, I don't know how much we would continue to work on it, because I did some pretty disgusting things for workarounds to get this thing going, so there would be quite a bit of cleaning up to do.
Yeah, naturally, that's the sort of thing that any game jam, you got the spaghetti code and the hastily imported libraries and whatnot.
Usually I'm not too bad for that. Usually I can make something semi-clean, be able to come back to this, yeah. But this one I was just I don't care. I'm running out of time. We're just gonna hard-code dependencies. We're just gonna do everything in a very gross way, but you know what? It's gonna work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing...
In the famous words of Todd Howard, it just works.
Yeah.
I think one thing that could also really help is potentially UI elements on the screen. I know that you want the player to be tuned into the soundscape, and I think that the sound that's a really neat immersion detail. But I think it would be neat to have both the option to keep an ear on the sound system, but then maybe also have some sort of visual cue. You mentioned that the lights, for instance, would have been a very obvious cue for when the engines were malfunctioning. But had you considered the idea of little indicators on the screen to show when stuff's going wrong?
We initially did. We were kind of going something along those lines in the beginning, but once we kind of started discussing a little bit more about that more immersive way to communicate these things, we kind of started to strip away a little bit of the UI, player health. There's only so much you can kind of communicate through just visuals, and it might be a little misleading, and you don't have that hard hard understanding of what exact state you're in until you played like several times, and not everyone is exactly keen on doing that for a game jam. So that one we kind of ended up keeping, and kind of same thing with the whole like various ways we could have communicated the state of damage, but it was probably just going to be easier just to use a bar for that. But for the
it's
rest
easier
of
to
it, yeah, and then yeah, the rest of it, I think here, yeah, we did kind of have some ideas to try and do some more visual things, but I think we
Like we've got a few things in. Like you notice the lights go, like we mentioned before that we wanted them to be emitting light and then not emitting light, but they actually go from yellow to red if the thing in that room isn't working. And also almost all of the sprites have a on and off state. So like for example, I don't know how behind on the stream you are, but the radar station is currently off because it has no hologram projecting.
Yeah.
We were gonna try and do more stuff like that, I think. I think if we had time, like some sort of like specific indicator would be nice. Like I know they all have different sprites depending if they're on or off, and they have. I think do they all have different noises now? Like each machine has a different noise when it goes offline, I think.
really
Yeah, like some.
much. I know the pilot station doesn't, because that one is essentially just based off of, the asteroids. Yeah, I think we got everything else right, Alec?
Yeah, everything has a sound, but we did end up realizing, maybe a little too late, that in order for people to actually get it and know what each sound represents, we would have probably needed to ease them into it with either a tutorial or growing difficulty, but that was way outside of the scope and the time we had to do it. So yeah, probably visual indicators would have been good to help people who just jump into it really quick, since it's a jam game.
Like we really wanted people to kind of figure it out themselves, but like even if we just had like a caution sort of icon appear in the middle of the screen that says system offline, because I know every now and then like an actual audio cue comes up that says system offline, but like just a big like warning signal that appears like in the middle of the screen that says something's gone offline would have helped players know, because some players complained like, oh, I didn't even know my ship was breaking. Like, well, like we gave you clues, but maybe we needed to just put it in your face,
Yeah, it's
like,
very true. That
really tell people.
basically, unless information is overlapping with the player character, you can't count on people to actually pay attention to it. I was once working on a game where there's a relatively prominent health bar for the player character, like a big bar along the top of the screen broken into a whole bunch of different chunks. But despite that, I still took a page out of the Nintendo's Kirby games, and when the player character actually takes damage, I temporarily show a tiny version of the health bar just above the character themselves. And then that sort of like is shown both when they regain health and when they take damage.
Yeah, I think the general rule is you want at least, well, you want as many different variations of the same information being shown to the player at the same time. Like in games, yeah, like you when you get hit, there's a noise, your character flashes white, they flinch, your health goes down, there's a big flash on your health bar, like the screen shakes. Like there's many things going on as possible at the same time that tell the player, oh, something went wrong, or oh, I did something good. As possible would be nice. So like, yeah, in terms of communicating for this game specifically, I think we would have tried probably more visual cues and like the UI element before, but like sparks coming down from the roof when you get hit by an asteroid, or like lights flashing when a machine goes off to really draw your eye to it. You know, there's a lot of ways we could have done it. We really wanted to avoid holding the player's hand, though, because that's essentially the whole game loop is you figuring it out because everything's falling apart around you. And if we showed you how to do it, we would essentially ruin our whole game loop.
Right, because I guess the general thing that you're discussing, like with all these different kinds of like visual feedback, audio feedback, the like it's like in a broad category, it is feedback, right? That you're trying to give the player, whether that is through differences in the sprite or a bar changing, or as you mentioned, it's like some sort of visual effects or audio effects. A couple of things that I can imagine being helpful without necessarily giving things away is the ability to like hold down a button and then the camera can zoom out so you can see all the stations on the ship at once, and then sort of when you let go of that button, then it zooms back in on the character. So you can sort of quickly get an eye on everything, and then it's still up to the player to deduce like what's different, what sprite doesn't look the way it's supposed to. And then also the idea of when a system is close to malfunctioning, it can either like play a special tone, or you can have like a pre-recorded message like incoming asteroid, or something like that, and then that sort of cues the player like, oh, I gotta get over there, gotta do that, gotta tend to that system. And by the way, so I made it to year 49. Pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I saw that. That was very good.
Well, I sort of realized that I could ignore the radar, because as long as I just kept tending to the bridge and steering clear of asteroids, then it seemed like I didn't really need to keep the radar up.
Yeah, it was definitely like a little bit tough to try and tie everything together super well. Part of the issue is also just balancing the numbers so that everything's not just either aligning at the same time and all of a sudden you have like everything down at the exact same point, but also trying to balance like the importance of that particular station and how much time you have. Like I think the power generator, and you have like somewhere like 15 to 20 seconds. So it's a pretty generous window, just because, as soon as that goes out, the game's over. So you want it to be at least somewhat fair. You have like pretty long amount of time to get it together, go and either make quick touch-ups and then fix this before game's over. So yeah, there's various little challenges throughout trying to balance all this, but like I said, part of it just boils down to that's just how game jams go sometimes. But yeah, for the camera thing, I did actually consider that at one point, but part of the other reason why we tried to keep things minimal in UI but also keep it pretty immersive is because we just really wanted to lean into that chaos. So you definitely could zoom out and like see everything, but we kind of thought it would be a little more interesting so that you have a limited view of kind of what's going on, but you really want to just be paying attention, trying to just figure out some sense in all the madness that's going on around you.
Yeah, of course. And then...
Well, even... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, even the camera itself was a bunch of balancing. Like, we had it at several different sort of, like, zoom in and zoom out. Because we wanted it close enough so that the player you can't see everything at once, so you have to go around the ship. But we wanted it, like, wide enough. Like, there was, like, talking about balancing and how much info to show the player. It's just interesting how much of that was on the camera zoom itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about when you mentioned the zooming out feature, because we did discuss that, actually. It was something that we were considering, but, like, I feel like once a player sort of had that figured out, they could sit on the cockpit and like hold down, like essentially hold the camera out until they saw a light change or a sprite change, and then run to there straight away. With the camera zoomed in, you have to be constantly on the move, which even if you've got the situation under control, you're still constantly running backwards and forwards on your ship. And we feel if you could zoom the camera out and see everything without having to run around, one, it would take away from the chaos, because now it would take away from the chaos and it would add another layer of management. But yeah, I think it would completely throw off the kind of game. Like, if this was the sort of game where it was say, a specific puzzle, for example, like if we completely flipped the game on its head, like currently the whole theming of the game is you're on a completely falling apart ship, you're running to a destination that you're never going to reach. But we could have, like, if we wanted this game to have a bit more replayability, we could say, oh, you actually make it to your delivery, like you need to last 15 years or something. You make it to your delivery and then you get on another ship. Then the zoom out feature, I feel like would be more valid, because then you would have to figure out several different layouts over the course of the game, and it's just more player friendly to let them look at that.
Yeah, and like even as you're describing that, that sounds like a kind of game that would be fun to play. So I don't know, like you mentioned maybe not hopping back and making too much more progress on this particular game, but do you have any plans for, say, like working on something related to this project, or do you all just have like other plans and projects down the line?
I mean, I think we've all definitely got other projects going at the moment. But like I would be happy to, like, also as an artist, like a lot of my job's already done, so I'm like, hey Gamma, do you want to put in like a month of work, 2 months of work?
You make flashbacks to 3 a.m. shoveling and assets all the time as you guys are making some on the spot.
Like, hey Gamma, here's a whole sheet of asteroids, can you implement them? You're like, let me get more Red Bull.
I didn't even have coffee. I had nothing. I was just running on pure will and determination to not pass out.
And by the way, how long have you all been working together on like? Have you done like a game jam project before this one, or?
Yeah. Well, it's actually, we are a small part of a bigger team that we usually work with. So me and Gamma have worked on, how many game jams is it? I think 4 game jams so far? Or 5?
You and I specifically, I think 5?
Yeah. And then Arkan joined us to help us with the GMTK jam a few months ago. And then the rest of our team, which is another programmer / game designer and another artist, couldn't join us for this game jam. So it was just the 3 of us. But yeah, it's just been a few months. We started doing game jams together this year.
Yeah, like April, I think.
And when was the GMTK jam? It was like June, July. So yeah, it hasn't been that long, but I've been here, this is my 2nd jam I've made with these guys.
Nice.
So they know how to put up with my artist shenanigans by now, I think.
Oh no. By the way, what is the point of repairing the vent?
Initially it was supposed to be just, so you don't get smacked around, but I think I was planning on trying to make it so that it will flip even if you run past it, so then you're still going to get hit. But it was mostly supposed to be just like an obstacle, so that you have to wait those few seconds to try and repair it and get the monster back in the vent. But I think that was just something that just kind of slipped through the cracks.
Oh yeah, that was a last minute. Like, that was probably one of the last features we implemented, actually.
Yeah, I think that was like a 2 or 3 a.m. sort of thing.
Yeah, and I just remember you trying to get it to flip and it just wouldn't work. We're like, screw it. If the player can run past it without getting hit, the player runs past it without getting hit. Like, initially it was meant to be like that obstacle I mentioned before where you're essentially, you can walk past it, but you're 100% sacrificing a chunk of your health for speed. But yeah, it ended up that you could just walk past it without getting hit, and it's fine because we couldn't get it to rotate and follow you in time.
Yeah. Definitely one other thing that I think could be interesting is the elevator. Definitely, like the reason I don't end up relying on it is because like, oops, I forgot it on a lower floor or something. And it's definitely like faster than the ladder, but not by like how much is it? Like twice as fast, 3 times as fast? What would you say?
Pretty sure it's 3 times as fast if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So the way that I was going to suggest, like, A, you can make it even faster without making it seem implausible, and B, it could work whether or not the elevator is on this particular space by making it like a short-range teleporter instead, like a little teleporty pad that you just sort of like instantly hit the button and you warp right up, and that way it's there's a bit more incentive to use it rather than just, you know, you can basically see the way that I'm the pattern that I kind of defaulted to in playing the game here is just like hitting the oxygen synthesizer back and forth as I go between the bridge and the engines.
It's one thing that that was the hardest thing for us to balance. That's why we put the alien in there, and that's why we made the elevator break, was to try and stop people getting in this endless loop of going backwards and forwards between like one station, essentially.
Yeah, I think
But
we
yeah,
were able
it
to
didn't
just get
quite.
that. If we were able to just make it able to 100% smack you every time and be a little bit more of like a legitimate threat, I think that would have definitely helped, but just unfortunately slipped through. But
Because then even he could be doing the exact same loop he's doing now, going between the pilot seat, the oxygen, and the generator. But instead of going the ladder every time, he'd look at the ladder, go, oh, the alien's up, and then take the elevator instead. Like, it's not much different, obviously, but it does. It's a obstacle in your way that you are expecting, but you don't know when it will be there, you know?
But even then, in this particular configuration, I couldn't necessarily always take the elevator because sometimes the elevator is on the bottom floor, and I can't use it as an alternate path.
Like that is something that, like, if we work on this project further, we could do something like the elevators, like we could make either the elevator faster, which we probably don't need to, or make the ladder slower. And then if the elevator's like on a different floor, you call the elevator and the elevator crawls super slowly up to your level to like punish you for forgetting where you left the elevator. Like that's always an option. I do like the idea of teleporter pads, but for something that powerful, we would have to make it break every use, essentially.
Well, it depends
yeah,
on
because
what
I
the
know
routing
I was in.
is.
Sorry?
Oh, I was just gonna say it depends on what the routing is. Like if the teleporter is a great way of getting between like 2 specific points on the ship, but only those 2 parts of the ship, then it's not something you can use necessarily every time. Like sometimes it might be faster to, like if the teleporter took you like clear to the other side of the ship, but you just need to go like past the alien, then maybe it's not faster to use the teleporter. Maybe it's faster to do something else.
Yeah. The elevator I had kind of considered doing something like Arkan was saying, where you can call it, but I think we opted out of it just kind of as another layer of like one more thing you have to try and keep in the back of your head that you're paying attention to, like where did I leave the elevator last? But yeah, as you said, like unfortunately, once you get to a certain point and played it for a little bit, it just kind of devolves into a bit of a loop. But
yeah, making a circuit. Yeah, I mean, and you know, like part of that is my own fault for like ignoring some of the systems of the game. Like I'm not repairing the vent because I don't see it necessary to repair the vent when I can just run past it. I'm not, and as a result of not getting hurt, I'm not moving through to the med bay, and then also as a result of just consistently piloting the ship, I never need to activate the radar because I never need to be notified if there's an asteroid coming if I can just pilot the ship ahead of time. So that's why it kind of breaks down into this. I think I could probably just keep going forever at this rate.
Yeah, you saw through us.
All right, well, maybe we can talk a little bit about how the individual components of the game were made. So it was developed in Unity, right?
Yes.
And Alejandro, how was the what program did you use to make the audio for the game?
I use Logic Pro for both music and sound design.
Nice. All right, and then Arkanpixel, can I guess, was it Sprite?
It was a sprite, yes.
Yeah, it's basically what every single pixel artist illustrator ends up using.
Look, it's pretty, like, in terms of just drawing images, you're fine with pretty much any program, but animation in pixel art, like, I would rather die than use Photoshop's animation tools for pixel art, so A-Sprite is just far superior in that regard.
All right. And then maybe I'll... Oh, I just messed that up. Okay, I finally took a hit. But I'm well into year 56, so I'm pretty happy with that. All right, but yeah, so one other thing I like to ask is a little bit of like tips or tricks, you know, things that are unexpected that new users might find helpful. So maybe we'll just sort of go down. Alejandro, can you recommend anything about logic that you think would be useful for like maybe something unintuitive that people just getting started with software might not be familiar with?
Good question. Well, there's a bunch of things depending on the user giving it, but one thing that I really love that Logic Pro has is specifically for making loops, and that's particularly useful for looping music. That's not actually the case here, but well, in general, that's pretty useful. Is when you're bouncing or exporting the track, Logic has a function that's called the bounce second cycle pass, and basically what that does is you define the looping region, and then it plays it once, and then it loops, starting from the beginning, and basically exports the second pass. And what that gives you is, it gives you the audio tail from the ending at the beginning of the track, and that way when you loop it in Unity, it loops perfectly. Nice. So that's a big time saver when you're trying to make seamless loops.
Yeah, absolutely. That's incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
All right. Arkanpixel, how about A-Sprite? Any useful tips or tricks you can recommend?
There's honestly A-Sprite's pretty easy. Like, it has a low skill floor, high skill ceiling, I guess you could say. In terms of stuff for this game, the biggest time save for me was using one of the palettes that was inbuilt in Unity. Like, if you go above your palette on the left-hand side of the program, there's a little, like, new file, like, paper button, and you click on that, and there's a list of about 30 pre-made palettes. It's got, like, Atari palettes and Commodore 64 and all that sort of stuff. There's got Game Boy Color, you know, all the ones you would expect to find are in here. The Pico 8 palette. I think I use the I can never pronounce his name. Endesga palette. I think it was the EDG 32 is what I used for this one from A-Sprite. But yeah, like, obviously if you've got time, making your own colors and stuff like that is a good part of being an artist, but if you don't have time, there's a bunch of palettes in A-Sprite already. What else? I don't know. the fill tool is your friend. there's a contiguous and non-contiguous like checkbox. So essentially, you can make it so that it either fills between the lines like a regular fill bucket, or you click on a specific color or type of thing on your screen, and it changes all of that to your. So say I used a red on his pants that I really didn't like. I could untick the contiguous checkbox, and then paint his pants, and it'll change every instance of that red color to the new one that I just filled it with.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a time saver as well.
Oh, absolutely.
But, I don't know.
I use GameMaker Studio version 1 for the jam games that I make, and there is a similar like color. They just call it a color replace tool, and yeah, it's super handy to be able to just instantly paint out everything to be a certain color. I use it all the time, especially if like I'm switching a color, like I want to invert the color. Like I want to say like, oh, you know, I've got his shoulders are blue and his pant legs are green, but I kind of want it the other way around. So let's color swap the pants to pink, color swap the shoulders to blue, and then color swap the pants to the green color. And just sort of like, you know, iteratively go through it that way.
I mean, there's actual specific replace color stuff in Asebright as well. I just didn't want to go through all the alright, and here are the keybinds to do this specific command, and but yeah, you can do that. I think it's Shift and R in Asebright, and you can do that. That's a good trick actually. Over if you want to replace a color over several frames, you can select like all of your frames. Like if you're saying you're swapping out a color, if you're swapping out a blue to a purple but you've already made your animation, you can select all 8 frames or all 10 frames or whatever, and then do the Shift R command and replace it like that, and you save time by not having to go frame by frame use the paint tool.
GameMaker definitely does not support that.
That's why I said Asebright is the best for pixel art animation, stuff like that.
Yeah, I own it. I need to learn how to use it. I'm just way too used to GameMaker because it's just so handy to stay like in the engine and do all your artwork and development from just there.
You know, there's a there's an artist developer. He's the solo dev on an indie game. He made a sort of beginner's tutorial for Asebright. Actually, it's on YouTube. I can post the link.
Oh, absolutely, please do.
Yeah, he does like these pixel art classes, but he has a thing that's called his Asebright crash course in 30 minutes.
Is it?
And he goes over like each of the tools, each of the brushes, specific keybinds, you know, how to export things correctly. He goes over the whole workflow essentially.
By any chance, is it Heartbeast?
It is not Heartbeast, actually.
Okay.
I don't think Heartbeast has done anything specifically for Asebright, actually. Or maybe he has.
But okay, so yeah, thanks for posting the link there. And in the well, I guess just moving on then. Gamma, you knew it was gonna come to you eventually. Do you have any tips or tricks for developing in Unity that you'd like to pass on?
How much time do you want me to go into this? Because I could go on for
you know what? I will take a hit here and just put a little command in chat here. So this is I just posted a link to a C# and Unity reference document that I've been compiling, and I basically use that to, like, every time I solve a problem in Unity or figure something out in the C# language, I add to that document. And you know, I would love to just have this document be like a collection of as much developer knowledge and solutions to problems as possible. Feel free to, you know, go into it as much or as little as you like for now, you know. But, you know, I'd also be more than happy to discuss further design and development best practices or tips and solutions on a future stream if you would like. but maybe you can just pick your favorite suggestion for now. Something that top of your mind.
I guess, like, specifically for, if you're trying to even make just stuff in, like, jams, don't get too hung up on, like, the way you're putting everything together. Just put it together, make it work. It doesn't matter how ugly it is. Hopefully nobody will ever have to see it again. As long as it works, it works. So I think I've kind of heard quite a few stories of people just failing to submit because either scope issues or they just got a little too hung up on like either their perfectionism or, you know, just over ambition. But yeah, I would say like keeping your scope small so that you can make everything quickly is kind of a key thing, like making sure you can know how to utilize all your tools as effectively as possible, like especially if you're working in like a team, like we are, making sure that you know how to be using the tile map feature really well. Like putting together the ship and everything was relatively simple once we got all the sprites together and everything, and it saved us a lot of time. Like when we wanted to add new stuff, it was just a pretty quick extra slice to add these extra things, put them in the palettes, do all that. So making sure you're familiar with your tools and just breaking down your problems into small little bits. And yeah, I would say that's kind of the biggest one, is just knowing how to break down your problems into manageable bites, because that can also really hurt you if you're trying to solve too many things at once, and it all can just kind of come crashing down.
I guess another quick note on the tile sets. In terms of like the art end of it, if you say like do a tile set and then you go, oh, this XYZ tile isn't how I wanted it to be, if you can edit it in your editor, export it, as long as the layout is exactly the same, you can just replace the file that you've got fully set up and split into the tiles in Unity. I think you have to do it through like the Windows Explorer or whatever, but but yeah, you can completely replace that, and instead of having to go through and set up a whole new tile set and split all the tiles in the grid and all that sort of stuff, you can literally just replace the image that you've already done all that work on, and it will fix the issues you had or replace the tiles.
Yeah, you can actually do that with
Go ahead.
You can actually do that with the audio files as well. I know we've had a couple times where we needed to either fix something or just we wanted to replace a certain sound, and you can do the same thing. You just have to replace the file itself and make sure the titles are the exact same, and then it'll be fine. Unity will have no issues with that.
Yeah, that's been a huge time saver.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And then I think the other thing I was going to say about the tile system is that I'm pretty sure that you can actually just go to the tile resource itself and update its art, and then anywhere that tile has been placed in the game, it will update to the new art that you specify to it.
In theory, yes.
Yeah, it's generally easier to, as long as you keep the layout of the tiles the same, it's usually easier to just expand the image a little bit, like to the right or down if you do need to like increase the size.
Yeah.
And just kind of update it through that, because usually we'll work in tile sheets rather than trying to manage like a million individual sprites. We'll usually just put everything into that, and then all of the tiles you won't have to try and go and edit a million images. It saves you a lot of time if you're just using slicing.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, I would like, if anyone is in chat and they have any questions they would like to ask, then please do pass them along. I think I just kind of hit a point where I can actually survive. We're into year 108 right now.
Easier.
But in the meantime, I'd just like to ask where can people find each of you? Feel free to post your links to various social media in the chat as you respond. And do you have any other projects that you'd like to plug? Let's start with Alejandro.
Yeah, okay. Well, you can find me in Instagram at alejandro.phz, and in Twitter, same thing but without the dot, just Alejandro PhD.
Okay, and
I'll send you links to it.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'll send you links to it,
Yes.
and if I was gonna plug something, I'd tell you to play Kina Bridge of Spirits on the PS4, PS5, and Epic Game Store. I worked on that project and it released last week, so
Oh, nice.
go and play it.
Alright, yes, please do post the links in the chat, and then Arkanpixel, same thing.
Yeah. Well, look, my my handle's the same everywhere. It's like I'll post my Twitter in the Twitch chat, but I also stream here on Twitch as well. I try to stream at least once or twice a week. I do pixel art, and I actually work on my own game project currently.
Nice, do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Essentially, the project is a Metroidvania with, I guess the quickest elevator pitch I can give it is if you think of Hollow Knight, it's a similar sort of setting to that, except instead of gothic insects, it is medieval amphibians.
Alright, sounds good.
The protagonist is a frog in a cape with a cool hat. I don't know what else I need to tell you.
That's
I think
your,
that should
Discord
pretty much
profile
sell the
image,
game.
isn't it?
Sorry?
Is that your Discord profile image?
Yes, actually.
Cool.
Yes. Yeah, I was streaming it yesterday actually, and I was making an animation similar to in Super Metroid, where if you're facing left and you turn right, it sort of does like a turn. But then when I put them both together in the animation file, it made him dance. So that's something I'm very proud of. I'll
Nice.
post that image.
Yeah, please do. And then GammaFox.
Yeah, I guess the place I'm usually most frequenting is Twitter. I haven't posted a lot about it recently because it's been a lot of mostly design work, so we haven't had a whole lot of stuff to like really show off and some back-end stuff, but it's been working on like a main project where I guess the elevator pitch for this one would be a multiplayer mini roguelike competitive something like that.
A competitive rogue?
Kinda, yeah. So TLDR would be that you all start in individual rooms and you're essentially going through your individual small gauntlet and trying to kill off enemies, gain some cards and abilities, and then everything coming together in the end for a final PvP fight at the end, and then rinse and repeat for X amount of rounds.
Alright, sounds good. Well, if either Arkanpixel or GammaFox, if either of you are looking for some playtests for development in progress, I'd be more than happy to feature the work on the channel and sort of give my thoughts as I try the game out, much like I'm doing right now. And yeah, I guess just in general, anytime you have anything that you'd like to share, please feel free to drop it in the Discord. Thank you so much for joining on the interview and on the call today. It's been a lot of fun to talk through this and give the game a try here. And I guess I now hold the record for the longest number of years survived, huh?
Yeah, just a bit.
I think so, yeah.
I respect the commitment to doing that for so long, especially over the course of doing an interview.
Well, it became kind of easy when I sort of got into the loop of things. But okay, there we go. Nice power of 2. We're gonna let the alien take us on year 128 here. There we go. I was just 1 hit from death. But yeah, so thank you so much for joining on the call, and have a good evening. And then in Arkanpixel's case, I believe have a good morning.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very
Kevin.
much for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Hope we get to talk again soon.
All right.
Definitely.
And oh no, I was gonna leave with a dance.
Yeah, if you please do feel free to post the link in the chat, and I'll pull it up on the stream.
Oh, I
My
put
best.
my links in the Discord chat,
Yes.
but I wasn't able to do it in Twitch because I
that's
don't have a Twitch account.
Oh, okay. I'll repost any links that you've sent me in stream chat. There we go. I see them. And GammaFox, make sure. Yeah, perfect. I was just about to say, make sure you drop your links in the chat as well. All right.
All right, perfect. The frog dance is in.
Okay, there's the frog dance. Let's pull that up. Here we go. Oh, that's so adorable. Yeah, I can totally see what you mean. Like doing the little turnaround animation. Look at him go.
Yeah, I put them both together. I'm like, oh damn, he be dancing. So
Oh,
I'm probably gonna make that my follower or subscriber sort of pop up. It's gonna be the frog dancing, I think.
Yeah, well, that's a very common thing in some of these older games, like Final Fantasy. I believe they use the cast animation without the special effects as the like victory dance when you win in a battle.
Yeah, look, anything that can save me having to do another animation.
All right. Well, yeah. So once again, thank you so much for joining me on the call today, and hopefully we'll get to talk again soon.
Have a good day.
All right.
Sure.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
Oh, and thank you for the follow. Bye.